Hi, so I'm going to talk about a book called Influenced: The Impact of Social Media on Perception by Dr. Brian Wachler. Now, why I picked up this book is for no particular reason other than that the it has influenced me. Now, first things first, and again, these are just my thoughts and my takeaways, so be my guest to build your own thinking around this. Now, the word influenced, right at the outset, for me, it has a negative connotation. It used to be something that somebody is coercing you, wheedling, coaxing you, or manipulating you, if that, for that matter. Now, how that got transformed and it has become such a trend that everybody is an influencer these days and they get a lot of promotions, brands, budget, marketing budget, and everything is quite amazing. Having said that, now this whole thing of social media is something as a many things in life. It has goods and bads as well. Now, when we talk about goods and bads, the good part being that it has created a lot of job opportunities, exchange of information and ideas, fluid exchange, not just any exchange. Uh, there is a platform which, like internet, which allows you to have speed and efficiency, connectedness. There's no lag, latency, and all that. And obviously, it creates jobs and revenues and adds to the economy per se. But the negative side, now that's something which we always, risk mitigate and find out ways to improve. Now that's something that we need to be mindful of, and that's what I feel. Now, what are the negative sides? Now, negative aspects of this whole culture of getting influenced is right in that word, in getting influenced. Now, when this speed comes into picture, it takes away the time. Now, when the time is taken away in that essence, you do not get enough time to reflect on things. You do not get enough time to objectively think through. There's no deep thought. So it's all superficial, quick thought process, reaction rather than response. And more often than not, that reaction is not necessarily objective. It's it is coerced for that matter. Also, the flip side is that as we see on most of the platforms, it's either like or dislike, right? Now, most of the things in life cannot be put in a black or a white context. There is a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of area whereby you may have different aspects of a certain thing which you like, certain aspects you don't like, and so on and so forth. So what it does is it polarizes the thought. So either I like something or I dislike something. Well, no, maybe not. And that is what it's clearly manifesting in the strong opinions that people have these days, and the polarization of the whole society per se. So that, and take that context into the age, function of age. Now, when we talk about younger age, it's a developmental age. The brain is developing, and if we are so distracted all the time, the lack of focus, or we're getting influenced by people, what they say, how they perceive, how they behave, what they wear, what they are talking about, how they're talking about, the language, the clothes, the lingo, the thought processes, everything is getting absorbed by that particular bracket of youngsters. Now, what that is also doing in the background is changing the way the brain functions or is supposed to develop. And in fact, to that point, the author mentions that there are studies which have shown that the gray matter density is adversely affected by multitasking and distracted lifestyle that we have these days. There's no deep reading, there's no deep focus necessarily that we indulge in these days. So that's something that this author talks about. It makes a lot of sense on what this uh, unnoticed human brain evolution that is happening, right? And that's something I'm taking away and getting to think about. Uh, Having said that, I did read about this, and a lot of such books have, by the way, come during this whole COVID era and post COVID. I have gone through a few of them, like Digital Madness, Influenced, Hooked, and a few others. I would keep bringing those books up, but typically what they are talking about is, it's this whole industry is not just that simplistic or serendipitous. It has happened by design. Design in terms of biology, understanding biology in depth, understanding psychology and other factors, sociology, uh, behavior. So when we talk biology, it actually, there is, when we consume something like this, when we have inherent biology whereby we get dopamine kick the moment we consume something that is rewarding to us or our idea. For example, sugar. The more sugar we have, the more we want, because the dopamine hit makes us feel really good. It's a pleasure center, and suddenly you feel this sugar rush, and then when it crashes, that's where you want more of it. So it's a similar thing. You hear a ding on your phone, and then you want to just take it up and just see what happened, or has somebody liked your photograph or your comment or something like that. And it's a self-propagating process. You just get trapped into that. I i have myself experienced that, and the only way I could get rid of it was to I tried muting the notifications, but it still doesn't work. A part of your brain wants to go back to your phone and then pick it up and check what's going on. I had to delete the apps, the social media apps, and that kind of changed my behavior. Good part was I was able to find such amazing pockets of time during the day, which I was wasting unnoticed, uh, not even noticing during the day, that there were 30 to 40 minutes I would just keep scrolling on a particular set of videos which would keep coming into my news feed, and I would not even realize when that hour is lost. Now I've found so much time, I could finish a lot many tasks that I like to do, that give me some sense of accomplishment. Uh, Least of all, I mean, I could go for a walk in the park. That's good enough. That adds to my health. So this particular thing is something I experienced myself, and I had to delete them. And it has allowed me a lot of time to invest in my own self. Uh, so these guys have hired the best of the minds to in the industry to make these apps and the design and interface. It's no joke, by the way. There, right? It appeals to our vanity. It appeals to our need for approval of others. Very basic, you know, some vices of human nature, that if you want to call it that way. But they do deliver a lot of anxiety. You keep thinking, what are others thinking about your photograph or comment or post or anything. uh, Causes low self-esteem, a bit of inflated idea of ego, and yet with hollow confidence, because if you were confident in yourself, you would not bother what really others and how many likes are you getting. uh, so that's something that the author has brought about, and in particular, with the generation, or with the evolution that our brain is experiencing right now. There's a stark difference when you talk about influence per se. Now, talking about influence, first and foremost, for me, I don't get the whole concept that somebody is going to influence me. In fact, if at all you ever want to use your ego in the right way, it's this: how can somebody tell? We talk about my independent opinion and space and all that. Yet we allow somebody to tell us this is a better shoe, or that is a better whatever product. I can't even think of it now. My point basically is, how can we then live in this dichotomy whereby we talk about our independent space and whatever, even to our closest family members, and yet we would want to get influenced? Bizarre. I think we would reach that point of inflection whereby everybody would realize that everybody is today an influencer, And if that's the case, the funny part is if everybody is an influencer, who's getting influenced? We would reach that point, I think, because the speed and the rate at which this whole industry is ballooning, it has to be pricked, and it will be pricked at a point in time, or self correct. Well, that's that, and we need to develop those filters to be able to judge a product or an influencer, even if we need to, and I'm not taking away the effort that people make. Uh, I can see merit in the fact that somebody is a user of a particular endorsement. Makes sense. I would give them a benefit of the doubt. Person is using, well, okay. I'll over a period of time, I would observe the person to have some credibility developed, or through my own filters and metrics, I would say, okay, this person versus that person, I would take this person's word. Let's go with this product. Otherwise, if I do some sort of a and money analysis, I think trying a product, or even just going to the market and or online and getting a feel of the reviews and all everything, I figure out what the product might just turn out to be. Otherwise, there are return policies these days. I just don't see the merit in getting influence. I just don't see the celebrity endorsement having any value going forward with the pace with which we are moving, with the awareness that we people have now. Even the youngsters these days, they know everything. If not, there are tools like Google and other search engines where you can just go and find out everything about the thing, right? So yeah, it's going to reach that point, and the author has made a very valid presentation on this one. To me, again, misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, it's swinging. The whole social media swinging between this misinformation from being an erroneous information to disinformation being deliberate, and malinformation is absolutely intentionally, dark, intentionally, deliberately uh, wrong. Now, we as adults might just be able to cope up, but I do feel for the parents and who have children, struggling with all this. It's just something I think we need to build better filter in ourselves to be able to not get influenced, not get affected or coerced or manipulated, for that matter. Especially with children, when they don't get those validations, they do get into just the sugar crash that we're talking about, sugar rush and the crash. They could get into withdrawal symptoms and isolation, and mental health issues and depression and whatnot. We've seen there have been so many instances of certain trends that kids pick up, and then they ended up harming themselves quite badly. So those are the things that we need to be very mindful of, and it's not that simple. There are regulations which are coming up around social media, around the liability of the platforms themselves. There is, in fact, one upcoming case in United States Supreme Court sometime, whereby they would be deciding on the liability of the platforms as to what is allowed, permitted, what is not, and that would extend obviously to the endorsements and everything else and the content itself. So that's going to be very interesting, by the way. So well, that's that. This book covers a lot of interviews from top influencers and studies, medical studies and researchers, some anecdotes as well. So a good read, not that lengthy, but very important and very relevant these days, I bet. And I think I enjoyed it. So would anybody who's interested to get a grasp or just a gist of what's happening in this side of the world unnoticed. Well, that's that, guys, and thank you for joining in. I would be back with something else, something interesting sooner than later. Thank you. Have a good one.